guys, today we are going to review the movie Patriot that came in 2000. And full movie review. I'll start with its title. The Patriot 2000 movie director is director Roland Emmerich. And if we talk about its steering, then it's Mel Gibson, Heath Ledger, and Jason Isaacs. And if we talk about its genre, then it's a more historical drama action movie. Its runtime is 165 minutes. And if we talk about overall impression, The Patriot is a large-scale historical war drama driven by emotion, conflict, and spectacle. The film blends personal tragedy with battlefield action. Creating an tense and emotionally charged experience. It aims to present war not only as a clash of armies but as force that reshapes families and individual lives. The tone is serious, dramatic, and often heavy, prioritizing emotional impact over subtlety. And if we talk about story and narrative, the story centers on reluctant men drawn into war by personal loss. What begins as a desire for peace slowly transforms into determined resistance. The narrative follows this transformation closely, tying national conflicts to personal motivation. The film unfolds gradually, speeding time, stabilizing family values and internal conflict before fully embracing large-scale warfare. As the story progresses, battles become more frequent and intense, mirroring the character deep involvement in the war. If we talk about main character and performance, Benjamin Martin was Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson delivers a committed and emotionally charged performance. His character is portrayed as deeply conflicted, capable of violence, yet driven by a desire to protect his family. Uh, Gibson's physical presence and emotional intensity carry the film, especially in the moments of grief and the performance emphasizes personal motivation over ideology, making the character journey feel driven by emotion rather than politics. we talk about supporting performance, well, Gabriel Martin, Heath Ledger brings sincerity and idealism to his role. His character represents youthful conviction and belief in a cause larger than oneself. Ledger's performance adds emotional depth and contrast to the story, particularly in scenes shared with the lad. His present strengthens the film's emotional core. If we talk about Colonel William Tavington, Jason Issa, Jason Issa delivers a chilling performance as antagonist. His portrayal is cold, cruel, and unyielding. The character functions as a symbol of oppression and brutality, creating a clear emotional position. Isaac's controlled performance adds intensity and let's try it reconnecting. Sorry for the late, and I think it's an issue. That's why it's being slowly. But let's try to fix it. And master this game. Yes, where we were. Colonel William Tavington. Jason Isaacs delivers a chilling performance as antagonist. His portrayal is cold, cruel, and unyielding. The character functions as a symbol of oppression and brutality, creating a clear emotional opposition. Isaac's controlled performance adds intensity and gives the film a strong central threat. And if we talk about its direction and its time, the film is directed with a focus on the scale and the spectacles. Battle sequences are large, chaotic, and visual strain. The direction emphasizes movement, noise, and confusion, creating a sense of battlefield disorder. The scope of the film is ambitious, presenting war as a widespread and consuming rather than isolated. If we talk about cinematography and visual style, the cinematography contrasts natural landscape with violent conflict. Open fields, forests, and villages are framed beautiful, which makes scene of destruction more impactful. The use of natural light and wide shots enhance the epic feels. And if we talk about visual, often emphasize contrast between peace and violence. And if we talk about music and sound, the music score is dramatic and emotionally strong. It reinforces moments of loss, triumph, and tension. The music often guides the viewer's emotionally response, amplifying both sorrow and heroism. And if we talk about sound design during battle scene, is loud and immersive, contributing to the film's intensity. If we talk about themes and emotional impact, the film explores the cost of war, personal loss and willingness, anguish and family and duty, and transforming through conflict. Emotion plays a central role. The film seeks to make the viewer feel anger, grief, and determined alongside the character. And if we talk about pacing and runtime, with a long runtime, the film allows its story to develop fully. The pacing is deliberate early on, focusing on character and family, then become increasingly intense as warfare dominates the narrative. Some sections may feel prolonged, but this lens allows the emotional stakes to feel significant. If we talk about strength, strong lead performance, emotional storytelling, large scale battle sequences, powerful antagonist, memorable score. And if we talk about weakness, heavy handed emotional approach, length may feel excessive for some viewers, lack subtlety in certain moments. And if we talk about final verdict, the its rating is 8 out of 10. The Patriot 2000 is an emotionally driven war drama that combined personal tragedy with the epic scale. It is intense, dramatic, and visual stirring, delivering a powerful viewing experience for those who appreciate emotional storytelling. Now let's go for its mm, more review. And then we have to start with emotional weight and atmosphere. The Patriot carries a heavy emotional atmosphere throughout. The film constantly reminds the viewer of loss, sacrifice, and irreversible change. Even method of victory feels restrained as they are often followed by consequence. The emotional weight gives the film seriousness and gravity. The mood remains intense and somber, reinforcing the idea that war leaves lasting scar. And if we talk about transformation of the protagonist, the film carefully tracks the internal transformation of its central character. He shifts from relevant observer to active participants feels gradual rather than sudden. Each event builds upon the previous one, reinforcing his emotional breaking. This progression adds credibility to his journey and keeps the character grounded. And if we talk about family as emotional uh, emotional anchor, family plays a crucial role in grounding the narrative. Scenes involving family are quieter and more intimate, providing contrast to the chaos of battle. These moments remind the viewer what is it at stake and why the conflict matters on a personal level. The emotional core of the film remains tied to home and protection. If we talk about portrayal of conflict, the film represents combat as brutal and unforgiving. Violence is direct and impactful, avoiding glamorization, injuries, fear, and desperations are clearly shown, reinforcing the harsh reality of warfare. The vast emphasis is on survival rather than glory. And if we talk about use of silence, silence is used effectively after moments of violence. The absence of sound highlights loss and reflection. These quick pause allow the emotional impact to settle rather than rushing immediately into the next action. If we talk about this technique strengthens the film's emotional pacing. And if we talk about visual contrasts, the contrast between peaceful environment and violent encounters is a recurring visual theme. Calm landscapes are repeatedly disrupted by conflict, reinforcing the film's message about the intrusion of war into ordinary file. This contrast makes destruction feels more personal and unsettling. If we talk about character relationships in the film are defined by loyalty and shared hardship bonds from quickly due to necessity and these relationships adds layer of emotional investment making losses feel meaningful. The film emphasizes connection through struggle, and if we talk about momentum toward resolution, as the story moves toward its conclusion, tension steadily increase. Each confrontation feels more consequent than the last. The film builds toward its final moment with a sense of inevitability. The resolution feels earned through accumulated sacrifice. And if we talk about overall viewing experience, watching the Patriot is an intense experience. It demands optional emotional engagement and attention. The film is not casual viewing. It asks the audience to invest in its character and themes fully. Its strength lies in emotional immersion rather than subtle complexity. If we talk about continuing reflection, the Patriot 2000 stands as a dramatic, emotionally charged war film that prioritizes personal loss and transformation. Its power comes from its seriousness, skill, and commitment to emotional storytelling. The film leaves a lasting impression through its intensity and emotional weight. And if we go for its review, sorry for the delaying network issue, and I can't find that, so that's why. Hmm. And is it made? Yes, it is. Then let's go for it. Then, if we talk about tone or consistency. Tone consistency. The Patriot maintains a consistent tone from beginning to end. It never shifts into humor or lightness, choosing instead to remain grounded in the seriousness. This tonal commitment reinforces the gravity of the story and keeps the viewer emotionally aligned with the film's intent. The seriousness feels deliberate and unwavering. We talk about sense of moral clarity. The film presents its moral framework clearly. Actions have visible consequences and choices are framed in terms of protection, loyalty, and survival. While character face difficult decisions, the narrative direction remains emotionally clear rather than the ambitious. This clarity makes the story emotionally direct and impactful. And if we talk about physicality of performance, performance emphasize physical exertion and strain. Characters appear worn down by conflict, reinforcing realism, facing expression, posture, and movement convey fatigue and emotional burden. The physicality adds authenticity to the viewing experience. If we talk about use of environment in storytelling, if we talk about natural surrounding are not just backgrounds but active elements of the story. Forests, fields, and settlements influence movement, tactics, and emotion. The environment feels the environment feels lived in and affected by conflict. This integration strengthens immersion. If we talk about emotional released and restraint, the film balance emotional release with restraint, while moments of anger and grief are intense. They are followed by quieter reflections. This balance prevents the emotional overload and gives the viewer time to process. The rhythm of emotional feels purposeful and If we talk about escalation without sound, conflict escalates gradually. Each confrontation feels more intense, but the film avoids uh, deterioration. The escalation feels controlled, making the narrative progression easy to follow despite the choice of war, the sounds of war. And if we talk about resolution and aftermath, the ending focuses on aftermath rather than triumph alone. Uh, The film acknowledges loss even in moments of victory. This choice reinforces cost paid throughout the story. Closure feels bittersweet rather than celebratory. If we talk about longer form commitment, this film length allows emotional arcs to fully deepen while demanding the runtime supports to the depth of transformation and consequence the viewer feels the passage of time and weight of sustained conflict. The story benefits from its extended scope. If we talk about continuing film, the Patriot is defined by emotional intensity, strong performances, and deliberate storytelling. It offers a heavy but immersive experience, prioritizing emotional truth over fidelity, over subtlety. The film leaves you reflective, affected by the cost of its journey. Let's go for its more review. You had to wait for a little time because processing very slow and it doesn't. I think we should refresh it. Let's try it out after reloading it. It's not. Yes, it's done. Okay, if we talk about weight of consequence Every major action in the Patriot carries visible consequences. The film repeatedly shows that violence leads to loss, displacement, and emotional damage. Nothing feels reversible. This constant reinforcement makes the story feel heavy and grounded. The film refuses to treat conflict as temporary or clean emotional isolations of the lead as the war progression. The central characters become increasingly isolated, even when surrounded by others. He feels emotionally distant. The isolation strengthens the tragic dimension of his journey and highlights how war separates individual from our life, and the characters solitude becomes war becomes part of a film's emotional identity. And if we talk about progression of emotional hardness, the film carefully tracks the emotional hardening of its characters. Early compositions gives way to grime visual, and this shift feels earned through repeated loss and exposure to brutality. The transformation is gradual, not abrupt. And let's go for its movie reviews, guys. And we have to start with visual storytelling through stillness. A bit of stillness are used to emphasize the emotional impact character or observe and reflect, allowing the viewer to sit with the weight of events. This still movements contrast sharply with the violence that surround him. Stillness becomes a narrative too. And if we talk about absence of glorification, despite its skill, the film avoid glorified warfare. Victories are short-lived and celebration is minimal. The emotional focus remains on endurance rather than pride. This retreat adds emotional Seriousness, if we talk about subdued color palette, the film's color palette remains muted. Earth tones dominate, reinforcing realism and emotional heaviness. Bright colors are rare, making moments of peace feel fleeting. We talk about the visual tone supports the somber mood, emotional payoff through endurance rather than offering quick emotional payoffs. The film rewards endurance. The viewer's emotional investment accumulates over time, leading to resolution that feels sustained hardship. This approach demands patience but delivers lasting emotional impression. The film lingers emotionally after it ends. Its imagery, performance, and tone have a reflective aftertaste. The viewer is left thinking not about spectacle but about cost and consequence. This lingering effect defines the film's impact. Continuing reflection, The Patriot is a film driven by endurance, emotional, physical, and narrative. Its power lies in its seriousness, consistency, and refusal to simplify the course of conflict. It offers an immersive and demanding viewing experience that prioritizes emotional truth over comfort. And if we go far more, and again network issue, and now we talk about emotional saturation as I think I do refresh it. Okay, then refresh. Now we can start. Okay, we were at emotional saturation, right? As the battery progresses, the film reaches a point of emotional saturation. Loss, fear, and determination stack upon each other, creating a dense emotional atmosphere. This saturation is intentional, immersing the viewer in the overwhelming nature of prolonged conflict. The film wants the audience to feel the exhaustion, not escape it. Psychological toll of violence. If we talk about beyond physical conflict, the film emphasizes the psychological impact of uh, repeated character display signs of emotional numbness and hardened result. compassion exists, but it becomes buried beneath survival instinct. This psychological toll adds realism to the narrative. Repetition versus as narrative device. Certain experience repeat attacks, losses, moral choices, reinforcing the idea that war is cyclically. The repetition is not meant to surprise but to wear down both characters and viewers. This repetition strengthens the film's thematic weight. If we talk about identity erosion, the central character's identity shift as the film progresses. Earlier values become secondary to necessity. This erosion of identity is subtle but persistent, underscoring how conflict reshapes people. By the end, the character is changed, permanently controlled, emotional extremes. And if we talk about while the film contains intense emotional moments, they are controlled rather than chaotic. The direction ensure that even extreme scenes remain clear and purposeful. This control maintain narrative focus. If we talk about use of distance in cinematography, the film often places the camera at a distance during emotional moments. This choice creates a sense of observation rather than intrusion, allowing the viewer to process events without manipulation and distance enhances seriousness. If we talk about emotional honesty, the film commits to emotional honesty, refusing easy comfort. It acknowledges that some wounds don't heal quickly and some losses can't be justified. This honestly strengthens the film's dramatic credibility and uh, final emotional tone. By the conclusion, the emotional tone is somewhere yet resolved. There is closure but not relief. The film ends with acknowledgement rather than celebration. This restrained ending reinforces the film's emotional truth. And if we talk about ongoing reflection, the Patriot remains a demanding and emotionally heavy war drama. Its strength lies in its consistency, emotional stress, saturation, and commitment to portraying the cost of conflict. The film leaves the viewer contemplative rather than exhilarated. And if we talk about accumulation of loss in the Patriots, accumulation not isolated each moments of grief builds on the previous one, creating a sense that the characters are carrying emotional weight that never resets. The film doesn't allow sorrow to fade before introducing the next hardship. This accumulation gives the story the emotional density, emotional distance between characters. As the conflict intensifies, emotional distance grows between characters. Conversations become shorter expression, more restrained. This subtle distance reflects how survival replaces vulnerability. The film shows separation, not just physical but emotional. Purpose replacing emotion. Over time, purpose begins to replace emotion. Characters act not because they feel strongly in the moment, but because they have committed to path. This this shift makes action feel inevitable rather than impulsive. The story becomes driven by obligation rather than desire. Uh, if we talk about attention without uncertainty, the film generates tension without relying on unpredictability. The viewer often senses what is coming, yet the emotional impact remains strong. The tension comes from anticipation rather than surprise. This approach creates a dread rather than shock. Emotional fatigue and intent. Emotional fatigue is not a flow here, it's intentional. The film wants the viewers to feel trained, mirroring the experiences of its characters. This fatigue reinforces the seriousness of journey. I think. Sorry, the exhaustion becomes part of the narrative. Minimal emotional relief moments of relief are brief and understated. When calm appears, it feels fragile and temporary. Reinforce the idea that peace is rare and easily disrupted. The film avoids comfort and steady descent in tone rather than dramatic peaks and valleys. The tone steady descends, the emotional trajectory moves downward, becoming heavier as the story progresses. This slow descent film feels controlled and purposeful. The mood darkens gradually, not suddenly. And if we talk about strength through endurance, strength is the film is defined by endurance rather than hero's character persist despite fear, pain, and loss. This far framing removes glamour and replaces it with resolve. Endurance becomes the film's quit message, and if we talk about final emotional rescue, after the film ends, what remains is not excitement but uh, reflection. The emotional residual is calm, heavy, and thoughtful. The viewer is left considering the cost of the journey rather than the outcome. This lingering effect defines the film's lasting power. And if we talk about continuing reflection, the Patriot 2000 is an emotionally demanding film built on accumulation, endurance, and uh, consequence. Its seriousness, controlled pacing, and commitment to emotional weight creates a unique experience that's immersive and soothing, entertaining in a conventional sense. And if we go for its more review, then it will. Okay, first thing that came up with it is uh, emotional narrowing over time. As the film progresses, the emotional rage narrows. Early movements contains prompt hesitations and hope, but these gradually disappear by the later stages. Emotional becomes focused almost entirely on survival and resolve. This narrowing affects how prolonged conflict is. life down to essential. If we talk about quiet acceptance of fate, characters slowly move towards a quiet acceptation of fate. Fear doesn't vanish, but it becomes a secondary. Decision feels less liberated and moral accepted as necessary. This acceptance gives the film a calm yet heavy emotional tone. If we talk about absence of romanticization, the film consistently avoids romanticizing struggle. Pain is shown as a training rather than inspiring. Courage is presented as persistence, not excitement. This grounded portrayal reinforces emotional realism. Behavior changes as storytelling. Instead of dialogue heavy explanation, the film uses behavior to show changes. Character speaks less, move with caution, and react with restraint. These behavior shifts communicate transformation without emphasizing subtle actions replace words. If we talk about emotional stillness after violence, following moments of violence, the film often settles into emotional stillness rather than escalation. These pauses allow the weight of events to sink in fully. The silence feels deliberate and heavy. Uh, Gradually, loss of innocence fades quickly throughout the story. There is no single defining moment, rather, it erodes through repetition and exposure. By the end, innocence feels like a distant memory. This gradually erosion strengthens the moral arc and if we talk about duty or desire, personal desires gradually disappear, replaced by duty and obligation. Characters are no longer act for personal fulfillment, but because circumstance demand it. The story becomes about responsibility rather than choice. If we talk about emotional restraint in climax, even at its climax, the film avoids emotional excess. Trump is muted and life is minimal. The focus remains on indirection rather than celebration. This restraint maintain emotionally integrity. Closing emotional structure. The film closes with a subdued emotional texture, not despair, not joy, but acknowledgement. What has happened can't be undone, only carried forward. This closing tone feels uh, honest and complete. If we talk about continuing reflection, the Patriot 2000 is a film defined by emotional narrowing, endurance, and acceptance. Its strength lies in restraint, seriousness, and commitment to portraying the psychological weight of prolonged conflict. The film leaves the viewer reflective, grounded, and emotionally affected. And let's go for its more review. And as so, if we talk about emotional comparison, as the Patriot moves forward, emotions becomes compressed rather than expanded. Feelings are no longer expressed outward but held inwarded. Grief, fear, and results coexist in silence. This compression gives the film a tense content, emotional pressure. The character feels emotionally full with no room left to release. The time felt through a weir. The passage of time is felt not through dates or dialogue, but through visible wear. Faces harden, movements slow, and become measured. Time is experienced as erosion rather than progress. This makes conflict feel prolonged and exhausting. And it about survival as routine. Survival gradually becomes routine action that once felt extreme began to feel normal. This normalization of danger reinforces how deeply conflict reshapes daily existence. The abnormal becomes ordinary, emotional withdrawal as protection. Characters emotionally withdrawn as a form of self preservation. attachment becomes risky, hope become restraint. This withdrawal is never started outright. What is evident in the behavior and tone, the film portrays emotional distance as a defense mechanism, loss of personal identity. Individual identify fades as collective struggle takes over. Characters are defined less by who they were and more by what they must do. Personal history becomes secondary to immediate necessity. Identity is reshaped by circumstance. We talk about minimal. And if we talk about minimal sentimentality, despite its emotional weight, the film avoids sentimentality moments that could become emotional, inelegant, or restrained. This restraint keeps the film grounded and prevents manipulation. Emotions feel earned, not forced. Emotional gravity over momentum. The film prioritizes emotional gravity over forward momentum. Even when events moves quickly, the emotional weight slow the experience. The viewer feels pulled downward rather than pushed forward. The gravity, this gravity defines the viewing experience. And if we talk about strength portrayed as endurance, then strength is portrayed quickly. It's shown through persistence, restraint, and refusal to collapse. There are grand emotional declaration of barely endurance replace heroism, aftermath as presence. Even when scenes move on, the aftermath of previous events remains present. Character carry invisible weight from what has already happened. Nothing is truly left behind. The past is always uh, carried forward. If we talk about continuing reflection, then this movie is a film built on emotional comparison Endurance and restraint weight is uh, it portrays conflict as a force that narrow life hardens identity and demanding quite persistence. Its power lies not in spectacles alone, but in the sustained emotional gravity it maintains throughout. Let's go for more. It's taking little time. Okay, then let's start with emotional flatting. As the film advances, emotions flatten rather than intensify. Joy, fear, anger all begin to exist at the same subdued level. This fluttering suggests emotional overload, where nothing can fully rise anymore. And the film reflects the emotional exhaustion rather than escalation. If we talk about silence as emotional expression, silence becomes one of the film's strongest emotional expression. Conversations shorten, pauses, lens, and reaction replace words. What is not said often carries more weight than dialogue. Silence becomes a form of communication. If we talk about gradually loss of choice early in the story, character still appears to have choices as events unfold. Those choices narrow until uh, actions feels predetermined. If we talk about emotional memory and behavior, character behave as if carrying emotional memory in their bodies, hesitation, guarded. uh, past lives inside their action. If we talk about violence as disruption, not release, violence never feels cathartic. It disrupts rather than resolve. Each violent act leaves emotional residue rather than relief. The film refuses emotional release through action. If we talk about absence of emotional closure for characters, while the story uses narrative resolution, moodiness, emotional closure for character remains incomplete. Some bounds remains open, knowledge rather than healed. Uh, this lack of closure feels intentional and honest. If we talk about emotional weight in ordinary moments, even ordinary moments carry weight. Simple action feel her burdened by what has already happened. Normal life no longer feel normal now, and the film show how conflict contaminates everyday existence. If we talk about dimensioning hope, hope does not vanish entirely, but it damages steadily. It becomes quieter, more cautious, and less expressive. Hope survives, but only takes. If we talk about final emotional state, by the end, the dominant emotion is not victory or relief, but steadiness. Life continues, change, and but the film ends in acceptance rather than resolution. This emotional steadiness defines in a closing note. If we talk about continuing reflection, uh, the Patriot is the study in emotional endurance. It portrays conflicts as a narrowing force that compresses emotions, erotics, choice, and demanding quiet resistance. Its power lies in restraint, silence, and sustained emotional gravity. And if we again go for its more review, then again that's a issue that it's come very slow, but yes, this time it's not that much slow. If we talk about emotional weight without release, throughout the Patriot, emotional pressure builds but is rarely released. The films avoids moments where tension fully dissolves. Even quieter scenes feels burdened by what came before. This lack of release keeps the viewer emotionally engaged but never relaxed. If we talk about normalization of hardships becomes normalized over time. Characters stop reacting strongly to danger or loss, not because it no longer matters, but because reacting would be unsustainable. This normalization reflect emotional survival. The film shows endurance as adaptations, not strength. If we talk about visual emphasis on still face, the camera often lingers on face after events than during them. These moments allow the viewer to read emotions through stillness rather than action. Emotions is conveyed through restraint rather than expression. If we talk about emotional loneliness within the groups, even when characters operate in groups, emotional loneliness persists. Shared purpose does not eliminate purpose. Personal isolation. Each character carries private grief. Togetherness does not erase solitude. And if we talk about lack of emotional safety, the film creates a world where emotional safety no longer exists. Peaceful moments are always temporary. This uncertainty affect how characters interact, keeping them guarded. Trust becomes cautious and limited. If we talk about purpose and emotional shelter, purpose replaces comfort. Characters lean on duty to survive emotionally. Purpose becoming a shield against despair. We talk about action replace them. If we talk about gradual emotional numbness, by later stage, emotional numbness becomes visible. Reactions soften, expressions dull, and responses flow slow. This number is not portrayed as strength but as necessity. Feeling less but become a way to endure. And we in it, let's talk about conflict as identity shaper. The conflict reshapes identity complex completely. Who characters were before less matter less than who they must be. And now the film treats identity as fluid, and if we talk about emotional continuity across senses, scenes, the film maintains emotional continuity. Scenes do not reset emotionally what is felt in one moment carries directly, not the emotional reset order. If we talk about final emotional aftertaste, the final emotional aftertaste is quiet and heavy. The film ends without emotional fireworks, choosing knowledge and art, art the experience settles rather than concludes. And if we talk about this, continuing reflection, The Patriot 2000 is a film of emotional endurance, restraint, and accumulation. It's a seriousness, controlled pacing, and refusal to offer emotional escape creates a viewing experience that is immersive and weighty. The film lingers because it refuses comfort. If we talk about structure solidity, the battery is built on a firm line linear structure, even unfold in a clear cause and effect chain which gives the film a sense of inevitability. Nothing feels accidental. Each turn feels like a direction, consequence of what came before. This solidity makes the narrative feel grounded and deliberated. We talk about emotional anchoring through Rudy. If we talk about daily routines, movements, preparations, waiting are shown repeatedly. These routines anchor the emotional experience, reminding the viewers that conflict becomes a way of life rather than a series of dramatic moments. Epic India. If we use, if we talk about use of distance to reduce sentiment, If we talk about emotional progression without peaks, unlike many war dramas, the film avoids sharp emotional peaks. Instead, it maintains steady emotional intensity. This approach prevents catharsis but deeper immersion, and the emotional line is horizontal rather than vertical. If we talk about physical exhaustion, mm, as narrative language, fatigue is constantly visible, movements are heavier, reactions slower, physical exhausted communicates emotional revelation without dialogue. The body becomes part of the storytelling. Absence of moral debates in later acts as story advance. Advance the moral debates fades decisions are no longer questioned, they are executed, and this shifts reinforce how prolonged conflict remove sparks for reflection. Action replaces philosophy. If we talk about emotional realism, our complexity in a film, emotional realism, our psychological complexity, feelings are direct, heavy, and unpolished. This makes the film emotionally accessible while remaining serious. Experience feels raw rather than integrate. And if we talk about closure through continuation, and if we talk about closure through continuation, the ending provides closure not by resolving emotion but by showing continuation, life moves forward, altered but ongoing. This approach aligns with the film's realistic emotional worldwide, and the story ends but the weight remains. If we talk about final continuing reflection, the Patriot function as an endurance-driven war drama. Its strength lies in structural clarity, emotional uh, restraint, and sustained seriousness. Rather, is seeking to shocking. It immerses the viewer it emotional persistence and consequence. The film stays with the viewers because it never offers easy release. And if we go for its more review, then we can go for it, but it will take little time. Okay, let's start with the emotional density over time. As the film progresses, emotions do not change rapidly, they think in feelings becomes layered rather than replaced. The fear exists alongside results, grief alongside it. The density makes such scenes feel heavy, even when little is happening on screen. The film becomes emotionally dense rather than emotionally loud. If we talk about movement reflecting mental state, character movements slows and become purposeful. Early urgency gives way to controlled, deliberate actions. This physical restraint mirrors mental acceptance. Characters no longer rush, they proceed. Motion reflects mindset war as a constant pressure. Conflict is the Patriot feels like constant pressure rather than intermittent danger. Even during quiet moments, the threat feels present. This pressure shapes behavior and emotional tone throughout the film. Peace never fully returns. If we talk about emotional focus on survival, not victory, the emotional center of the film is survived. Victory is secondary and often emotionally muted. The film consistently emphasizes staying alive rather than winning. This shifts the narrative away from triumph and toward endurance, gradually emotional withdrawals from the world. As even unfold characters emotionally withdraw from the wider world, their focus narrows to immediate surrounding and responsibility. Broader ideals fade into the background. The world shrink emotionally. And if we talk about stillness, stillness is not relief in this film. It is wait, pause, help, feel heavy rather than calming. Silence carries accumulated meaning rather than emptiness. Stillness becomes emotionally loaded. And this movie is often and I'm making soon, guys. Wait for a little 2 minutes, and it will take 2 minutes more, and I will do 2 minutes. What you say, guys? And it will be enough, guys. Let's go back to our. So, emotionally continue through visual tone. The consistent visual tone ensure emotional continuity, lighting, color, and framing maintain the same emotional register across scenes, preventing tonal breaks. The film never emotionally reset. Absence of emotional resolution in conflicts, even when confrontations and emotional tension does not. The film avoids resolving emotion through action. Conflict leaves residue instead of closure. If we talk about regulation, is incomplete by design, and strength defined by persistence. Strength is not portrayed as dominance or victory. It is shown through persistence, restraint, and refusal to collapse emotionally. The film defines strength quickly, ending as emotional acknowledgement. The conclusion feels like acknowledgement rather than conclusion. The film recognizes what he has been lost without attempting to replace it emotionally. Acceptance replaces celebration, and if we go for its continuing reflection, The Patriot 2000 is a film built on emotional persistence, controlled restraint, and cumulative weight. It portrays conflicts as narrowing force that compress emotion, reshapes identity, and demands endurance. Its power lies in its refusal to offer emotional escape. And let's go for again its more review, and it will be little, very little. We talk about emotional pressure without melodrama. The film implies constant emotional pressure but avoids melodrama. Scenes are not framed to beg for tears or dramatic reaction. Instead, emotion is uh, embedded in circumstance, letting moments speak for themselves. This restraint keeps the drama grounded and believable. If we talk about gradual shift from personal to collective burden, early emotional weight is personal and family central. As the film progresses, that burden becomes collective, individual pains blends into shared suffering, making loss feel widespread rather than isolated. The story expands emotional without being abstract. If we talk about presence of fear beneath control, fear is always present even when characters appear composed. It exists beneath calm behavior, visible in hesitation and caution rather than panic. This beat fears add realism to performance, and so simply it was the review of the movie The Patriot, and I hope you like it. If you like it, then I like it, and I'll see you. I'll see you tomorrow. And goodbye, and thank you for being here. And now goodbye, tada.